Tit for tat, the British Prime Minister considering next steps to take after Russia expels 23 British diplomats. And one of President Trump's attorneys calling for an end to the Russia probe just a day after the firing of former FBI Deputy Director Andrew McCabe. Plus, a look at the important role Antarctica is playing in combating climate change. Hello, I'm Lynda Kinkade. Welcome to CNN Newsroom. Prime Minister Theresa May says the UK is considering its response in an escalating tit-for-tat with the Kremlin. Russia is expelling 23 British diplomats and closing some British diplomatic offices. It's in retaliation for the 23 Russian diplomats being expelled from the UK after the poisoning of a former Russian double agent and his daughter in southern England. British Prime Minister Theresa May had this to say a short time ago.
Today, our ambassador in Moscow was informed by the Russian government of the action they are taking in response. In light of their previous behaviour, we anticipated a response of this kind, and we will consider our next steps in the coming days alongside our allies and partners. But Russia's response doesn't change the facts of the matter. The attempted assassination of 2 people on British soil, for which there is no alternative conclusion other than that the Russian state was culpable.
Well, for more details, let's bring in our Matthew Chance, who's in Moscow, and Melissa Bell is in Salisbury, England. I want to start first with Melissa. We just obviously heard there from the British Prime Minister. Russia retaliating, going slightly further than the Brits, but both countries saying they have the right to retaliate even further.
That's right, and Theresa May very much leaving the door open to that, saying that it is in the next few days that a decision will be made once the National Security Council meets. So there may well be further British retaliation in this tit-for-tat. Meanwhile, here in Salisbury, Lynda, the investigation continues. British police, Wiltshire police, have appealed for anyone who might have seen the car that belonged to Sergei Skripal on the morning of March the 4th, the day that he and his daughter were found very ill on that bench just behind me here in the town centre of Salisbury. There are a crucial few hours, it turns out, in that timeline that's being built by the police between about 9:15 a.m. and 1:30 in the afternoon, when they simply want to know where the Skripals were. And that car, very much the focus of the investigation. You can see perhaps on the very latest images the car in a picture, a video that was taken yesterday, that shows clearly that anyone getting near it continues to wear that protective gear. Now, police have also said in this latest statement that this is a very painstaking investigation. Indeed, they believe, Lynda, that it could go on not for weeks, but for months. They've trawled through 4,000 hours of CCTV footage, examined more than 750 exhibits, but still there is much more work to be done. 250 specialized policemen and women from the anti-terrorist unit are involved in what they describe as an around-the-clock investigation. So from what we're hearing today from police, Lynda, this could be some time before we get any clarity as to precisely what happened and precisely when and how that poison was administered to the father and daughter. Lynda.
Yeah, certainly a lot of evidence to go through, Melissa. I want to go to Matthew Chance now. And as we see this tit-for-tat, this diplomatic tit-for-tat between both countries, Russia is on the eve of an election. And given what we've seen over the last 6 years, the annexation of Crimea and the meddling in foreign elections and the assassination attempts, what can we expect going forward?
Well, Russia isn't specifying that, but it is saying that it reserves the right to take further retaliatory measures, as it calls them, if there are any, what it calls, unfriendly acts by the British. And so there's certainly potential, plenty of it, for this situation to escalate further. You're right. Vladimir Putin is going to the polls tomorrow to seek re-election from the Russian people as Russian president. There are 8 candidates, in fact, who will be standing for the election for the presidency tomorrow. But really, only Vladimir Putin is the contender. He looks absolutely certain to win that election. There is a sense in which Vladimir Putin uses these opportunities to show himself to be a strong leader and to show Russia to be a strong power on the world stage. whenever he can get a hold of one of them. And it seems that he's using these allegations and this tit-for-tat argument with the United Kingdom in that way, because he chose this day, the day before the voting takes place in Russia, for the Russian Foreign Ministry to announce its retaliation for the expulsion of 23 Russian diplomats from Britain earlier this week. They came out, they said, look, we're going to expel these 23 British diplomats. They called the British ambassador into the Foreign Ministry here in what was described to me as a very short and terse meeting with Russian Foreign Ministry officials. But they went further than that. They didn't just leave it at 23 diplomats as a sort of reciprocal action. They also closed down the British consulate in St. Petersburg, which is essential for people in that city, of course, that want visas for Britain. It's going to make it much more difficult for them. And also crack down on the activities of the British Council across Russia. And that's a cultural institute which encourages education and cultural activities between the two countries. And so they've gone, a little bit further than the British did. But, you get the sense that those measures were geared to, show dominance in the situation, but not necessarily to provoke a big reaction from London.
All right, well, we will see how this plays out over the coming days. And, of course, we will be watching that election closely tomorrow. Matthew Chance in Moscow and Melissa Bell in Salisbury, England. Thank you both.